Your conscience has a biological basis. That's
Sure, it
what
has a
I've been
biological
saying.
basis. I got a brain. But I would argue that there's more to my conscience than just chemicals.
Well, you would be arguing something that would have no factual evidence to back it up.
Exactly. Except my experience. And my
No,
experience
you
is
have not
free will.
experienced what's going on inside your brain.
Sir, every night I can sit on the side of my bed and judge myself. Self-critique. You don't think so?
You cannot sit on the side of your bed and say, I think that I am judging the circuitry in my brain and I am judging what neurons are firing on and off and how it's connected.
Yeah, I can promise you I don't do that. That's not what I do.
Maybe someday we will have that ability and understanding of the brain. But right now, the brain is still kind of a black box.
Well, all right, fine. But I'm going to tell you what my experience is. My experience is at night, I sit on the side of my bed and I evaluate myself. And I say, Cliff, when you said that today, that was good. When you said that, not so good. Don't repeat that. In other words, I have the ability of self-perception and judging myself. That clearly points me to the fact that there's more to me than just instinct. There's a me that can judge my decisions. That means I've got free will. That's what I define as free will. That's me really that can judge myself.
That sounds like a non sequitur. Like the logical connection between free will and judging yourself is like kind of just you just pulled those two things out of thin air and decided that one led
I didn't pull them out of thin air. I shared with you a daily experience that I have. Self-judgment, self-critique, self-perception.
You have a daily experience of creating non sequiturs then, because that's
fine.
what that is.
Not only that, if this guy hauls back and hits him in the face, I'm going to look at him and say, you should not have hit him in the face. And if he looks me in the face and says, I'm sorry, my brain chemistry programmed me to hit him in the face, I'm going to look him in the face and say, I don't agree with you.
No.
Your brain chemistry might influence you to hit him, but I'm convinced you have a will. That's why I hold you responsible for hitting him in the face, because you didn't have to hit him. You chose to hit him.
You can only make that statement if God tells you can, because your morality rests on this God guy.
Nope.
And what it actually rests on
my morality
is
does not
the
rest
Bible,
on the God guy.
Which is actually what it rests on is the Bible.
Nope, doesn't rest on the Bible.
You could say that because those are your natural feelings about that, and I could say the exact same things for the exact same reasons. But you don't have an added moral sense because you read the Bible. If anything, reading the Bible confuses your natural moral sense.
No,
because
the Bible
God has commanded his
some
children
of my desires
to murder women and children in the past.
No, sir.
He may do
You're
it again.
being dishonest intellectually with that.
No.
Yes, you are. Yes, you are. Because the Bible is not saying that God delights in the death of children.
I wasn't saying
the Bible says it says the opposite. But the Bible also says that God judges, and at times when God judges in history, innocent people are swept along in that judgment.
Swept along. What a euphemism for widespread death. I mean,
no, you've got to be more intellectually honest. Read the text in context and see the point is. Yeah, that's right. If you send a flood to judge people, there are going to be some innocent people that are going to drown along with guilty people. And if you can't understand that, I don't know what to say.
Who here can understand that? I mean, this speaks for itself.
Yeah, a flood is going to drown innocent people and wicked people both together.
I mean, this makes God like the biggest mass murderer in history.
No, he's a judge, and he guarantees that evil loses.
Maybe from his perspective, he's just sweeping people along, but I mean, these are people that are dying.
Yes, they are. They're people that died, correct.
So, I mean, there's nothing more I can say. I think this speaks for itself.
I think so, too. Thank you. Have a good evening.
Hey, man, my son.
I would like to ask you, as an American Christian, do you feel victimized by the secularism in our society? I mean, do you feel that secularists are trying to take away your religion. So as an example, not allowing public school dictated prayer in public schools. Do you feel that that is secularism taking away your right to believe and worship?
No. No, I don't.
Especially if it's kind of trending. So you're completely okay with not teaching creationism in schools?
Yeah.
So you believe that evolution is an accurate theory?
And I have the utmost respect for professors who teach evolution as a process. My problem is with the intellectual dishonesty of so many professors who teach evolution not as a process, but as an origin. And they do that in the name of science. That is intellectually dishonest, I am convinced. Evolution as an origin is not science, it's philosophy. It's a philosophy of science. And I've had the privilege of debating several evolutionists who have pointed out very clearly that to try and use science to prove God is intellectually dishonest. And they've been equally honest to try and they've said, and to try and use science to disprove God is intellectually dishonest.
I would say that you cannot compare faith, something that rests completely on a person's belief and not necessarily any need for evidence. You can't really compare that to a way of thinking that relies entirely on evidence. Faith is all about proving, and this is right. Science is about disproving. You can never prove something in science. You can only disprove or support.
I disagree. My brother is involved in genetic research to help the body take in the new liver and kidney without rejecting it. He's a transplant surgeon and he does research. I can promise you, my brother is trying to find out how to genetically manipulate things so that the transplants that he makes will be accepted by the body. So I view science as a tremendous, fantastic area of knowledge where we're trying to discover how to solve problems. We're not just trying to negate things, we're trying to follow the evidence. Where does the evidence lead?
Right, and you do that by systematically testing in a way that you can either support or disprove, but
Yes.
can never prove.
Yeah.
Okay, so you can't compare faith and science. You can't use science to try to prove God, because how can you prove something with science? Science doesn't prove, it only supports or disproves. And God, by definition of faith, cannot be proven. It cannot be, you can say, oh, well,
Interesting.
you know,
Right.
I feel God in me.
Right.
I feel a spiritual connection. I can, when I read the Bible, I feel that connection with something greater than me.
Right.
But those are only feelings.
Okay.
And science can show them in an MRI. We were kind of talking about feelings earlier and love, and you can see that in an MRI. So,
Okay, I would express it differently. I would say there is evidence that God exists. Not scientific evidence, but philosophical, rational, reasoning evidence. Order and design demand an intelligent mind. In my observation of life, 100 times out of 100, when I see order and design, it points me to a designer. A beautiful piece of art demands an artist. A delicious meal demands a chef. A magnificent building demands an architect and a builder. When I stand at the foot of Mount Rushmore, if I say, wow, isn't it amazing the way the water dripped over the rock? Oh, there's George Washington, Abraham Lincoln, there's Teddy Rough Rider Roosevelt. That's ludicrous. The order and design of Mount Rushmore demands a sculpture. Mr. Borgland, I think was his name. See, order and design, in my experience, demands an intelligent mind. If anybody tries to convince me that this sweater came about as a result of a hurricane passing through a cotton field, I don't agree. I got a real problem with that.
I would definitely agree that that you need a designer to create something as simplistic as a material object like your sweater. I think that it takes the beauty and magnificence of evolution and time and trial and error and species having mistakes in their DNA and being born and either being successful or unsuccessful. That is design. Evolution is design. It is a chaotic design, and without your godly intelligence behind it, but it is nonetheless beautiful and can be shown through scientific exploration, because you cannot deny all of the evidence supporting evolution. There has not been a piece of evidence disproving the theory. And
As a process, but not as an origin. See, the question, is there an intelligent mind behind the process of evolution, is not a scientific question. It's a philosophical question. So what do you think? Is it more reasonable to believe that behind the amazing process of evolution there's an intelligent mind? Or do you think it's more reasonable to believe behind the amazing process of evolution there's no intelligent mind? It's all just chance and fate. What's more reasonable?
reasonable or comforting?
Reasonable and plausible.
Reasonable, I think it is a lot more reasonable to think that to believe in a chaotic theory that things happen, instead of believing that there is this magical being in the sky that controls things. Because where did that magical being come from?
Okay, that's a great question. Obviously, Albert Einstein thought at one time, along with Aristotle and others, that the universe was eternal. And therefore, there's no need for God, because the universe is eternal. The Big Bang Theory came along and showed, no, sorry, universe is not eternal. Universe is about 15 billion years old. Einstein was sharp. Einstein understood, if this is true, that the universe is not eternal, it means there's got to be a God, a creator.
Why?
Why? Because everything that has a beginning has a cause. If the universe has a beginning, then the universe has a cause.
So is God eternal?
Correct. God is an uncaused cause, without beginning, eternal. And that is by far the most reasonable answer to the question, what is eternal? Because the Big Bang shows us the universe is not eternal. It's about 15 billion years old. So the question is, who or what caused the universe?
But who or what caused the thing that caused the universe? We're talking.
All right. If there is a God, he's an uncaused cause. He's eternal.
And right here, you talk about God as a male. Why? Who's to say that God has a gender?
Oh, that's very simple, man. God doesn't have big biceps and facial hair. When we say God is he, the only reason we say he is because we don't have a personal neuter pronoun. The only neuter pronoun we have is it. And God is not an it. God is a personal being who loves. But you're right.
So God is a person?
Personal being. Personal being. Not body, torso, head, arms, legs. Personal being, a spiritual being, but not an it. God is not the force. God is a personal being who loves you. It's pretty good news, isn't it?
Well, some people would disagree with you, but...
On what basis? Why would someone say, shoot, God loves me, I hate that?
No, I'm arguing that multiple people would disagree with you that God loves me.
Good gracious, what kind of person would say God doesn't love you?
Well, doesn't the Bible say that if someone doesn't believe in God and accept him into their heart, that they're going to eternal damnation?
Yes.
How can something love me and also want to give me pain? How can something love me conditionally? That's not love. Love is unconditional. And if God loves me, then he, she, it is not sending me to eternal damnation.
All right. All you got to do is think carefully. What does the Bible say about hell? What it says crystal clearly is heaven is relationship with God, together with God. Hell is separation from God. And because God is tolerant, and because God respects your free will, God refuses to force you to live life now with him and then haul you into heaven to spend eternity with him. Instead, he respects your free will. And if you choose to live your life separate from God, you have that right. He's tolerant. He respects your right. And he's not going to force you to spend eternity with him in heaven. If you want to live your life separate from him, you'll spend eternity separate from him. That's hell.
So hell isn't like Dante's Inferno.
That's right. Dante
Okay.
didn't know about hell.
So
Correct.
so hell isn't this eternal pain and anguish. It's just me not being with God.
Well, wait a second. You're a beautiful woman. You have gifts. You experience pleasure. You obviously have a brilliant mind. Those are all gifts from God. And when you're separated from God, you're separated from the one who gave you all those good gifts. It ain't going to be a party because you're separated from the one who has blessed you with all the tremendous gifts that you enjoy.
Actually, I feel most separate from the beauty that is humanity when I'm in a church, when I'm surrounded by organized religion.
But look at Jesus Christ, read the Gospels, and check out Christ. And don't allow the church to turn you off to Jesus. That'd be horrible.
Excuse me, I shouldn't have said, I should not have only singled out organized religion. When I think about a being, a father-like paternal being,
Yes.
watching over me and loving me and saying, oh, well, I'll let you have your free will because I gave it to you. I don't feel connected. I feel connected when I think about evolution. I feel connected when I look at Papua New Guinea. I feel connected when I look at the evolution from mammals onto land and then mammals back into water, because that's what the conditions of the time provided for. And we have fossil evidence that whales, what we now have as aquatic mammals, whales, once lived on land. Do you think that that's, I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
My thoughts are simple. If God used evolution to create, wonderful. But I can promise you, if you take God out of the equation of evolution, social Darwinism and eugenics makes total logical sense. And ma'am, I can promise you, there ain't one beautiful thing about social Darwinism or eugenics.
No, I am
and
not
social
saying that at all.
Darwinism and eugenics are totally logical, following up on
No.
Darwinism if there is no God.
No, okay, because that is once again putting the power of evolution into some being, into some creator. But evolution
It is not. Social Darwinism has nothing to do with the creator.
Social Darwinism is humans taking evolution into their own hands.
It's okay.
No, it's not.
Then what is eugenics?
It's eugenics is the logical consequence of understanding that evolution is survival of the fittest. Evolution is an upward cycle, upward path, and let's help evolution. Let's not waste our natural resources, which are limited, on helping handicapped people, helping subhuman humans. Let's instead push for the survival of the fittest. Why should you waste your natural resources, which are very limited, on handicapped people? It's a waste of time. Instead, let's all evolve up the ladder, according to evolution. That is very logical. I'm not saying you have to go there, but that is very logical. Social Darwinism and eugenics make total sense if there is no God, and we just are the result of the evolutionary cycle.
You don't accept God doesn't mean you're just a hedonist. You can look at the long-term things and rationally try and have self-discipline to make the right decision over the long haul.
Good. But listen to you speak. Listen to the words that you use. You can do the right thing.
Right.
You can use your reason. Well, sir, if there is no God, there is no right thing in an objective sense. Obviously, in a subjective sense, there is. But you know better than that. You know that by using your reason, you can get in touch with objective truth. Wow. That's a key piece of evidence that there's got to be some type of God who gave you your rational mind, who created these values, and they're real, and they really do benefit you.
Right.
And that's good.
But I'm saying evolution, like behavioral evolution, can explain why humans are predisposed to certain behaviors. Like, for example, lions practice infanticide. And obviously to humans, that's egregious under all circumstances. But that's just because that's not beneficial to us. We want to protect and nurture our children. Well, lions, they don't care about their offspring, their competitors' offsprings, and they kill them because that's just their survival strategy. It works for them, doesn't work for us. So I'm saying different animals have different moral codes. And I'm saying that humans have a specific moral code that is reinforced by society and created by our evolutionary history that we can try and follow, and it'll make everybody more successful.
But is it more reasonable to believe that your rational mind comes from the irrational or the non-rational? Or is it more reasonable to believe that your rational mind comes from a rational mind?
I mean, are you
Well-
saying you disputing evolution, or?
No, I'm disputing the philosophical. I'm not disputing evolution as a scientific theory. I'm disputing a philosophy of evolution that says the rational can come from the non-rational. That's ludicrous. Everything in my experience shows me the rational comes from the rational never comes from the non-rational or the irrational. But an atheist is someone who says, I believe in a miracle. And the miracle that I believe in is the rational comes from the non-rational. That's a miracle. The only problem is my atheist friend has no miracle worker.
It's consciousness is an emergent property. I mean, it's very well defined how a rational mind works. It's not a mystery. There's nothing mysterious about how the mind works in that absolute sense. We can say how the rationality is an emergent property of, irrational particles, if you would, of irrational cells. I mean, it's not a mystery.
This is not you're right. It's not a mystery to begin to work through how does the brain work. That's not the issue I'm raising. The issue I'm raising is if you're an atheist, you believe that the rational mind ultimately comes from the irrational.
Right.
Now, is that more reasonable for you to believe that the rational mind comes from the irrational, or is it more reasonable, more plausible to believe the rational mind comes from a rational mind, Creator God?
But basically, that's the whole argument of that is if it can all be explained via evolution, doesn't need. Basically, it's the same argument of intelligent design of, oh, well, something ordered needs an order creator. That's a fallacy. Is it more reasonable to believe order came from disorder or order came from order? Obviously, order came from order. That's just semantic argument. We know for a fact that order can come from disorder in a kind of semantic way, but it's very well defined. It's not a mystery. I mean, it sounds better. Obviously, it sounds appealing to say, order comes from order, but that's just not the case.
Order doesn't come from order. Order comes from an intelligent mind. You don't get designer genes without a designer. You don't get a building without an architect. You don't get an automobile without a mechanic. You don't get a message written in the sand, John loves Mary, without a rational mind to put that kind of information together. So, an atheist is having to believe in a bunch of miracles. That life comes from non-life, that the rational comes from the irrational, that chaos moves to order by chance. Those are all miracles. The only problem is the atheist doesn't have a miracle worker, no God. You've got a major logical problem there, a major philosophical problem. It has nothing to do with evolution. This is a philosophical issue, not a scientific issue.
Wait, how could it not be a scientific issue?
Because science, sir, is a study of process, how the thing works. The question, is there an intelligent mind behind the thing, is not a scientific question. You can't scientifically prove God. You can't scientifically disprove God. Rather, you've got a philosophical question, which is it more reasonable to believe that behind the process, whatever the process is, evolution, micro, macro, whatever, is it more reasonable to believe that behind the process there's an intelligent mind, or is it more reasonable to believe that behind the process there's no intelligent mind?
Basically, we can show through science that everything in the universe, the way it is right now, can have happened without God, as in God is an unnecessary component, as in everything, the way things are right now can be perfectly explained without God.
Nope. Richard Dawkins can do some good science. He's a lousy philosopher. Richard Dawkins can't punch his way out of a wet paper bag philosophically. Scientifically, he's brilliant. But you've got to think through this issue, guys. You cannot scientifically show that God exists. You cannot scientifically show God does not exist, because science is based on the repeatability of an experiment. If you can't repeat it, sir, it's not science. So the question, is there an intelligent mind behind the universe, is not a scientific question. It is a philosophical, theological question. You can't mix the two.
Basically, I think science is a study of the universe, and if you're saying God created and orders the universe, that's a pretty bold statement about the nature of our universe. And to say that science can't touch that if you really do believe God is part of the universe and one with the universe and the creator of everything in this universe, how can you say that he's not subject to scientific interpretation? Because I mean, that's a pretty bold statement about origins, isn't it?
Scientifically show me that Abraham Lincoln was assassinated by John Wilkes Booth.
The burden of proof is on the proposer. You show me that God exists. You're proposing a hypothesis about how the universe came to be. So where's your evidence? I don't have to give you evidence to prove that you're wrong. You have to give me evidence to prove you're right. That's how any rational being...
You have put forth a statement that science can do it all. Okay? What you basically said is, Cliff, unless you can scientifically prove something, it's not true. Okay, that's what you've said. Now, just think. Would you please scientifically prove to me that unless I can scientifically prove something, it's not true?
Not about things like, values and morals, but I'm talking about things like the origin of the universe.
How about going on a date? Do you go on a scientific date? How about the way your family lives? Does your family live on scientific laws when you go home for Thanksgiving or Christmas vacation? How about history, Abraham Lincoln, which I was raising? Is there any historical fact that you prove scientifically? You guys get Abraham Lincoln back here every fall to have him assassinated by John Wilkes Booth to prove scientifically that indeed John Wilkes Booth assassinated Abraham Lincoln? Okay. No. See, scientific knowledge is based on the repeatability of an experiment. Bravo! Very good. But don't make the mistake of thinking that that's all there is to knowledge and truth. Scientific knowledge based on the repeatability of an experiment. Sir, historical knowledge is a wonderfully legitimate form of knowledge. It has nothing to do with repeatability. It has to do with the trustworthiness of eyewitness testimony. Somebody saw Lincoln shot. They recorded what they saw. And guess what? This university has the audacity to charge you guys big bucks to take these history courses that have nothing to do with science. They have everything to do with history, which is based on the trustworthiness of an eyewitness seeing it happen. You don't repeat it.
I'm not saying science can answer everything, but I'm saying that the role of science is to describe physical phenomena.
Yes.
Right. And to say the role you have for God is as a part of this physical universe. It'd be one thing if you're saying, okay, here's the philosophies of Jesus. I think they should be applied to our society. Then science has no dictation of that. Your philosophical point of view is your own opinion, and that's a different field. But when you start talking about Jesus rose from the dead, well, there has to be a physiological explanation as to how that happened. If you want to say Jesus is the Son of God and God created the world and God created you, there has to be, since we are all made out of physical particles, there has to be a physical explanation for that physical phenomena. And that's where science can ask, how did that happen?
Well, sure, you could ask the question, how physically did Jesus rise from the dead? But I can promise you the Bible never gets close to that issue. There is absolutely no scriptural attempt to answer the question, what was the physical process that God used to raise Jesus back to life? So I don't know from the Bible how Jesus rose from the dead physically, medically, scientifically. But you see, sir, because the Bible does not attempt to answer that question does not mean that the Bible contradicts science. The Bible is silent, and you cannot build an argument out of silence. So science does not contradict the Bible because there's no science in the Bible to contradict. By science, I mean a description of process, how the thing happens. So just because we don't have a scientific explanation of how Jesus rose from the dead doesn't mean that historically the dead Christ didn't rise from the dead, because the eyewitnesses saw Christ die. They knew where he was buried in the tomb of Joseph of Arimathea, a very well-known tomb. 3 days later, the tomb was empty. The enemies of Christ could have easily gone to the tomb and produced the dead body of Christ, but the problem was the tomb was empty. Then these women claimed to have seen Christ risen from the dead, and over a period of 40 days, Christ appears to over 500 people at different times in different places, risen from the dead. And these eyewitnesses who see the risen Christ are willing to die for what they had seen, the dead Christ risen from the dead. That's why faith in Christ is not blind faith. It's based on historical, not scientific, historical evidence.
But I'm saying scientifically, the idea of God itself is implausible.
How? How does science disprove God?
Well, where's your proof for God?
You don't scientifically prove God. You don't scientifically disprove God. God is not a scientific question.
It's on the proof of burden is on the proposer.
Fine. Philosophically, I will tell you why I believe God exists. First point. Everything that has a beginning has a cause. The universe has a beginning, therefore the universe has a cause. The universe is not eternal. The Big Bang Arno Penzias' discovery in 1963 clearly points us to the fact the universe is not eternal. It has a beginning. Well, guess what, guys? Everything that has a beginning has a cause. The universe has a beginning. Therefore, the universe has a cause. God is that uncaused cause.
But see, that's saying, yes, the universe had a beginning at the Big Bang, but the matter that composes the universe doesn't necessarily could be eternal. That's basically, at that point, it was a singularity, which is outside the laws of science, periods, outside the laws of everything. So nothing can be said about the matter before the Big Bang. It could have existed for all eternity, who knows? But that's not, it's basically irrelevant.
No, it's not irrelevant. Because at this point, the evidence is there was not matter and energy before the Big Bang. Now, that could change. And if it changes, fine. Then I will not have that piece of evidence. But at this point, the evidence is that 15 billion years ago, when the Big Bang occurred, before the Big Bang, there was not matter, there was not energy. And the Big Bang started it all.
It was in a singularity.
Yeah,
And-
but the evidence at this point is before the Big Bang, there's no matter, no energy. Now, that could change, but astronomers at this point lean towards that. That's why Albert Einstein moved from pantheism to believing God exists, because the Big Bang, which says the universe is not eternal. The whole Aristotelian idea that matter and energy in the universe are eternal was blown to bits by the Big Bang. Maybe that'll change tomorrow.
As I said, the universe, as we know it, the definable universe is not eternal, but where it came from, the singularity is undefinable. And so to arbitrarily say God created it is basically, you could say anything you want.
No, that's not what I said.
No one can know anything.
Come on now, you know that's not what I said. What I said was, because of the Big Bang,
Right.
we know that there's a beginning to the universe.
Right.
Everything that has a beginning has a cause. Point 2, the universe has a beginning. Point 3, therefore the universe has a cause. So God is that uncaused cause that began the universe. That's a piece of evidence, not proof, but evidence. Second piece of evidence that God exists is order and design points to an intelligent mind, 100 times out of 100 in my experience. Now, maybe your experience is different. But if I prepare a delicious meal, set it before you, and then say to you, there's no cook, that's absurd. If I tell you that the building over there is a result of a hurricane sweeping through a brickyard, that's absurd. Order and design, in 100 times out of 100 in my experience of life, points us to an intelligent mind, an architect, a builder, a tailor, designer jeans, a chef, a delicious meal. So, Voltaire, who was no follower of Christ, put it this way. Voltaire said, if the existence of a watch proves a watchmaker, then the existence of the universe proves a great architect. If not, I consent to be called a fool. When you have order and design, it demands an intelligent mind of some type.
No, it's basically all those things you described, or inorganic, created things.
Created?
The things you described, watches, buildings, all those things do not have the ability to self-reproduce. Life is the exception. We can see how from non-life, life comes. We can see the process of evolution.
Show me how life comes from non-life.
When you eat something that's dead, when
You eat dead stuff?
when you take in iron in your diet, all those minerals, those are incorporated into your body and become part of your living self.
Okay.
All the minerals in your body, that's non-life being used to create life. I mean, we can see exactly the processes of by how
That's a digestive tract, taking food and digesting it and taking nutrients out of food. I'm a living being. This inanimate matter does not produce animate life.
right.
You never get life from non-life. Never. Plants come from plants, not from inanimate
Right.
matter. Animals come from animals, not from inanimate matter. Human life comes from human life, not from
And we can
inanimate
define
matter.
how that happens without using a god to evoke how it happens. It's a very well-defined process of how that occurs. We don't need to invoke God to explain how it came about. And there's lots of, as for example, I would say the best proof as to why there is no intelligent designer is there's littered throughout your genome, the DNA that makes up your body, there's these things called pseudogenes. And these things are basically junk DNA. They have no purpose, but they have the resemblances of old genes, but they just randomly stop working. They're useless. They're pointless. They have no value at all, except they're just remnants of evolution. Now, the only explanation is that genes and DNA, they evolved spontaneously and they weren't intelligently created. That's just one of many evidence.
Okay, just because there's chaos in the world does not mean that there's not some order. I agree with you. There's chaos. There's disorder. There's disharmony. Second law of thermodynamics. We don't just keep evolving to a higher level. Things fall apart. All right, so I agree with you that there's chaos, but there still is order. If you get sick enough, you're going to go to the most talented doctor you know of to straighten out the disorder in your body, the chaos in your body, be it a cancer cell, be it clogged arteries, whatever. You're not going to go to some street person and say, hey, why don't you try and give me a new heart? You're going to go to someone who understands the order and the design of the human body. So, sir, you cannot escape that even though there is chaos and disorder, disharmony, we agree, there's also amazing order and design. That demands some type of intelligent mind.
I'm saying basically science has shown the process by which life can evolve, and also the remnants of this process are directly observable in the life itself, as in we can see in the life itself how there's evidence of it. You know, the skeletons per se, you know, all the inefficiencies.
Then if your worldview is right, that it's matter and energy evolved to a higher order, show me a pound of love. Show me a foot of justice.
Those are all constructed in your brain.
Okay,
Neural
good.
pathways.
So then love is simply a biochemical reaction, and that's all justice is, a biochemical reaction.
A very complex one, yes, but
that's all there is.
what else would it be?
What else would it be? Well,
It's an idea.
if there's a God, then it means that there's more to you and me than just biochemical reactions. There's a soul, a personality, which means there's a free will, which means I could choose right now to be highly disrespectful to you, or I can choose to respect you. And to tell you the truth, I'm very grateful to you for the way you've been so respectful to me.
And like
I don't think you had to be. I think you could have chosen to be highly disrespectful to me. In matter of fact, if you right now haul back and start calling me expletives, I'm going to hold you responsible. I'm going to say, hey, man, you should not do that. And if you look me in the face and say, I'm sorry, Cliff, it's just my biochemical reactions going off, I'm not going to accept that. Similarly, when she looks you in the face and says, I love you, I don't think you think, okay, great. I excite her sex glands, so that's what she means. But according to your worldview, that's exactly what she means.